Hola, Laura Vega, writer-director of That's What It's All About. I'm going to answer a few of your questions. Very excited to be here, Frida Kahlo Theater Part 2. The first part was amazing. I can't wait to see the second part. Here are some answers to the questions you asked. So Emmanuel Lorca asks, were you able to let go by writing, by telling the story? As he says, one of the most difficult things is letting go. And what was the key you found to finally letting go? So I wrote, there's a quote from Goethe, a man or woman sees in the world what he or she carries in his or her heart. I think knowing that our loved ones is still in our heart is a good jumping point for the beginning to let go or move on if we've lost a loved one. And that's what the story is about. Everyone is different, and when there's a trauma attached to it, it is that much more difficult because I'm reading a book called The Body Keeps Score by Vessel van der Kolk. It's in our bodies and it must be exercised out. So I find writing to be the perfect outlet. It connects me to the universality of what I'm going through. Therapy also helps, as well as lots and lots of self-care, which I hope everyone is practicing. I hope my hair looks okay. It's probably a mess. Oh well, COVID times. The other question is from Andrew Cervantes, author of Lola. Why do you think mental health issue is such an issue in our communities? Yeah, that's a great question. There's stigma not just in our community, but mental health in general, as we all know. But I do see the tide changing. But in our community, it feels like people think that if you're crazy, that you need to be crazy in order to go to therapy or to go to counseling. When in fact, it just should be like going to the doctor. It should be as routine as that. It's changing, and I think especially now since the healthcare industry is seeing the mind and body connection. I mean, also remember this therapy, this counseling business, this is a Eurocentric thing. It was not in our community. We have things like shamans, curanderas, abuelitas, abuelitos, herbs, rituals that have addressed some of these issues. But there's a reason why we don't talk about Bruno is so popular because it resonates with so many families and so many cultures because we're not talking about mental health. So that's that. So here's another question. How does it feel to tackle the topic of depression? Same person, Andrew Cervantes. I'm not just tackling depression, I'm tackling suicide. And in hopes of not to sensationalize, but in the hopes of sparking a discussion. There has been a lot of shame and stigma, as we talked about, attached to these subjects, and in writing about it, you kind of begin to break the isolation associated with trauma. Once you begin the narrative, your brain's chemistry begins to change. Although this narrative is very personal, it's a universal theme that I think needs to feel that it needs to be explored. Another question by Sophie Goldstein, author of Rosa. Where did the spark for your story come from, and what was the inspiration? That's another question asked again a couple of times. The inspiration came from my personal life. Write what you know. I like the idea of universal themes, as I said. And I also like to challenge any kind of trauma I've experienced and transform it through expression, specifically via the arts. It's a sort of self-care. You can change the narrative, so change it in your brain as well. Another question was, do I have plans to make it a full-length feature? It's really interesting. When I saw the taping of what we did, the 10-minute piece, I actually, my brain naturally saw the full-length play. I believe the first half would be focused more on the father. It would be called the past. It would be the father, and then the dynamic between him and the mother. And the second half would be the now, or it would focus more on the daughter and how she's absorbed her mother's drama, if you will. Sylvia Chavez asks about my writing process. We all have different ones. I tend to write really fast when the inspiration hits, and the inspiration can hit anywhere. This particular inspiration, the title came first. It's my copy guy, the guy that fixes our copy, or that's in charge of our copy for the offices, had a tattoo on his leg that said, "That's what it's all about." And he explained it to me, where it came from, and it has nothing to do with what I wrote, but I just love that, what he said, that, and that it was a tattoo. And so I took with it and I ran, and I wrote, used my own experiences and whatever angst was present, and I write about it. So, my daughter's going to college, I've had a loss, and that's still in my mind, and it did happen 10 years ago. Also, the names are very important. Maximiliano and my husband, and then my daughter's name in the play is Max, which to me in my mind translates to maximum. They're just bigger than life, big energies. And Quirina is a Greek word for warrior. I felt that she had to have that sort of gravitas, even though she is kind of a drama queen. Another question asked by Silvia Chavez, the writer of La Liga Nuestra. Who do you write for? That's an interesting question. I have no idea. I guess mostly, I feel I write because that's where I've heard. I write for communities that have not been heard. I also, I write, again, for universal themes. So I'll take something that's going on in my life and try to translate it or transform it into a universal theme, if that's at all possible. So it's not about me, it's about connecting to the macro, to the larger picture. And that's that. My name is Laura Vega. Thank you so much for taking the time. Have a good day.